The following transmission is a conversation between myself and a Fallout 76 player named Cazador, who, during his years in Appalachia, amassed over 2,000 confirmed player kills. Cazador engaged in competitive combat with other players in-game at specific PvP encounter areas, wherein he would utilize his knowledge of the game's mechanics, PvP experience, as well as a unique character build to effectively become unkillable by most legitimate means. Utilizing his skills and knowledge, Cazador quickly became infamous in certain circles of the Fallout 76 player base, using both traits for both good and evil, and earning himself an almost legendary status. During our conversation, we talk about griefing, player engagement, and the situation that led to his eventual banishment from the game. At one point, Cazador remarks that one of his biggest regrets around his banishment was the in-game friendships that he had made during his time playing it being lost. If you or someone you know was friends with Cazador during his time in Fallout 76, feel free to DM me on Twitter, @followertoshi, should you wish to establish contact once again. This transmission is the first in a series of podcast-style recordings that I have wanted to make for quite a while now, sitting down and chatting with different noteworthy members of the Fallout community, and listening to their thoughts and opinions on various different elements of our community, Bethesda Game Studios as a company, and gaming as a whole. Ever since I was young, I've always had an inquisitive mind, seeking to make the most sense of the world around me. As I've grown older, becoming more interested in storytelling, writing, movies, and later politics, my inquisitiveness has only grown, especially as the world and the people around me become more and more dynamic and perplexing. This speculative mindset has only grown since I started doing YouTube, and I have met and interacted with a wide range of different people. And while not always perfect, I've always tried to approach others with a degree of understanding and accountability. I am not sure how my community will respond to a video like this, and I'm not sure how the larger Fallout and gaming community will either. Though I will always strive to produce content that I feel to be engaging, entertaining, and insightful. The 3 E's, if you're bad at spelling like I am. This is the Atomcast, and the best way you can help it grow is by becoming a Patreon member. Links to that and other socials in the description below. And now, here's my conversation with the Spectre of Appalachia, Cazador. Okay, so I guess the best place to start off would be more so, learning a little bit about you specifically. Obviously, feel free to answer in however level of vagueness you would like, but tell us a little bit about you as an individual.
Sure. So howdy, folks. So my name is Patrick. Some of you may have ran into me if you were fortunate enough to go by the call sign Cazador. Obviously, those who are big Fallout fans would get the reference from the absolute menaces of the Mojave that were the Cazador little assholes. I really have kind of became popular, notorious, if you will, just from my time playing Fallout 76 and the engagement with the community, if you will, that I've had the pleasure of taking place with.
Could you describe, in a sense, specific, like you say, engagement? What specifically do you mean by engagement? How did you engage with the community, rather?
Sure. Well, originally when I first started playing Fallout,
which Fallout? Some people are gonna.
Good question.
Yeah, some people are gonna drive me up a wall on that question.
Which one was it?
Was it New Vegas?
So interestingly, kind of backtracking a little bit, is I first got acquainted with the Fallout universe with Fallout 3 back in the day, and when I was recommended that game through some friends at school way back when, I had no idea what that game was in any way, shape, or form. And very few times in my life have I been like completely blind to something cool going into it. You're normally you're pumped about this, you're pumped about that. But going into it completely blind, like Fallout 3 was an amazing experience. I also had the pleasure, side note, I also had the pleasure of having that same kind of experience watching The Dark Knight. I was drunk with some friends, and I didn't know what movie we were even going to see. So like I didn't know it was a Batman movie until like dude dropped down on top of the car and like started beating people's faces in. I about shit my pants. I'm like, oh, it's Batman. Oh, this is amazing. Back on track though. So played Fallout 3, played New Vegas, and I know a little bit about the previous installments, just from wanting to learn about the lore and things. But really, what I said, I guess the reason why you're talking to me today is just because of my interactions on Fallout 76. I started playing that game, long after the initial release of that game, because I never had the pleasure of playing that on release. I heard it was a hot mess for a lot of people. But so I played it like maybe a year or two after the initial release, and I enjoyed it. And it started out just like me, just adventuring, meeting people, and really enjoying a lot of like their custom bases and stuff like that. I always thought that was like a pretty cool component of the game. But one base really stood out to me, and it was like an armory. Like someone had made like a gun store. And like I am a big fan of like firearms and things like that in real life. So like seeing that, I'm like, wow, like this is really neat. And I was like a low level player at the time. And like the dude was like, hey, like if you bring me materials and caps, I'll actually craft better weapons for you so that you can use them, this, that, and the other. Because I didn't have all of like the skill perks and stuff that like go in with all that. Mm-hmm. So like that was like a huge advantage for me, and I was like, oh, I was all about it. I'm like, dude, that kind of interaction was so cool. And of the screenshots that I still have from that game, that was like one of the few that I still keep. It's just like looking at his shop, because it kind of like really started a lot of that like player engagement. So then I went on to kind of like make that for myself, and almost like a superhero, or maybe like a villain origin story. Is I was hanging out up north on the map in that game, and there's a workshop for those of your fans who are familiar with Fallout 76, and those who aren't. Workshops basically are these points of interest on the map that allows you to claim resources. You create stuff that you normally just can't do in your own shops and stuff like that. But they're also places where player versus player interactions, like fights amongst each other, can take place without a previous handshake. Normally in that game, someone has to initiate combat, the other person agrees to combat, they both attack each other, and then that handshake, if you will, is like completed, and then they're both allowed to fight. In those areas, if you've claimed a workshop, someone can come through and contest it, and then you're immediately plunged into combat. And I had never experienced that in that game before, and I remember I had a pretty high level like shotgun build that I was like really happy about, and it did really great versus like PvE elements, against like the environment and things like that. And then I remember getting ragdolled by this guy in PvP combat, and I remember I had good equipment, like for PvE purposes. I had pretty good equipment, and I got ragdolled by this guy. And I told myself, I'm never letting that happen again.
When you say like you had good equipment, what kind of equipment are we talking about?
So it was,
if you remember that.
Yeah, man. Well, I do. It was actually an explosive shotgun. Mm-hmm. And the cool thing about that is when you have an explosive shotgun, it does like a tremendous amount of damage to PvE elements, like the monsters and things like that. And it's easy to use. The explosive aspect of it makes it so like the projectiles travel like a damn near infinite direction. So it's not like you don't have like as low a range as you would with the shotgun, like comparable to like a sniper rifle or something like that. But with the explosive element, then you can use it as like a sniper rifle. So like in VATS, you could aim very, very large distances using that. And what I found out, and unbeknownst to me at the time, is an explosive shotgun isn't necessarily a bad weapon to use in PvP, but at the time, there was a bug with PvP that you could not VATS somebody with a non-hit scan weapon in PvP. So how that would work is unless you use like a railway rifle, the cryolator with like the snowball modification, there was the harpoon gun, and these all have projectiles that are actually traveling through the air per se. All of those were weapons, including the crossbow, would work in PvP with VATS, but everything else would not. So then, unbeknownst to me, I'm locking onto the student VATS, and I'm taking shots with the shotgun, and it's not doing anything to him, and I'm just getting manhandled, getting absolutely murdered. And so that really began my plunge into trying to figure out what would be a effective means to protect myself and my friends, because I had a friend group that we all played and stuff, and the idea of us being at the mercy of someone, in our game, or the whole group just being at the mercy of like one person who's just like preying on us, that just didn't sit well with me. So from like that point forward, I kind of made it a point to kind of be like the enforcer of our friend group, and it kind of just started from there. It went from being more of like the enforcer to being more of like I would describe myself as like a high-end player versus player competitor in Fallout 76, even though it's not a PvP game. I would kind of force that upon people one way or the other. So it kind of really just spiraled from there.
It's so interesting. Well, so like first of all, you talked a lot about the build up, but the actual like interaction with the community, like how like after that point, you said you wanted to take on an enforcer kind of role, and it kind of became. It sounds like it kind of became a hunter versus, or the hunted becomes the hunter kind of situation. How, like, after that point, what was your style of engagement with other players in the community?
Sure. Yeah. Well, it started, like I said, it started off as I don't want to say innocent, but like it started off as like wanting to defend the friend group, and as I played more and more, I had gotten to like the end game of Fallout 76 as far as like I've done all the missions, I've hit like the level cap. There's not a whole lot else to do, and at the time in that game, there wasn't the you forgive me if I don't remember what they're called, but basically as you continue to level up, like it's almost like Paragon points in like in Diablo. Whereas like as you continue to level up, you gain access to like I think it was legendary perk cards. Yeah, that's what they're called. So that wasn't a thing yet. So there was really nothing to strive for. There was really not a whole lot to do. So just taking on fights in different workshops with people became very entertaining. And very quickly did I realize that I was like very good at it. I would say like in a matter of maybe a week or 2 weeks, I realized that like this is very entertaining and I'm really enjoying myself. And then it just kind of turned into almost like in the same way that a lot of people will role play different aspects, like like I said, like we had somebody who was like role playing as like a gunsmith, gun trader.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of started like role playing as like this almost, I'm trying to think of a word to describe it. Not quite a hunter, um, without being like too serious of my own self, almost like a specter that would like wander the map of Appalachia and just absolutely wreak havoc. But at the same time, and like this is like the biggest thing that like so many people didn't take away, and then the people who did end up becoming like my good friends. And in fact, that's how we met. Is that I would go in and like butcher parties of people and absolutely terrorize people who are like trying to gather resources and stuff like that. And the people who were good sports and like laughed about it, like I wouldn't say I would have mercy, but like I would be cool about it. And it's like people who had genuine questions like, hey man, like I cannot find you, I cannot kill you, what is going on here? Like that would turn into like honest dialogue of like, oh hey man, yeah, so what's happening is X, Y, and Z, and this is what why you're not successful, or this is what you could do differently, and blah blah blah. And it was always like good spirited. And then you'd have people who would just absolutely lose their marbles when you killed them. And I would describe it as like intoxicating, the level of salt that you can mine from people, if you will. But it was always a good time. And with that, I remember there was one time that I didn't know who this person was. We ended up becoming friends, but apparently my name had like made it around enough in the community so that like when I showed up, someone like already knew who I was, and they already knew. They're like, oh fuck, he's here. And that was an awesome, cool moment. Because like in the environment of like Fallout, where like a lot of that game, Fallout 76, where a lot of that game is just the community interactions with each other, having this being, if you will, that is almost like mythical, that like shows up and terrorizes the situation and like just creates chaos, and like is enough that like other players are like, oh my god, is that him? Oh no, it's him. Like that is a cool moment, and I would love to be almost on the other side of that and experience how that goes.
It's so interesting, because like you probably remember too, but like back before Fallout 76 came out, Todd Howard was hyping the game up, as is his responsibility. Be like, hey, you can, like, there's going to be no other NPCs in the like, friendly NPCs, so it's all like, player driven. Like you can trade with other people who have skill sets that you don't. They say, hey, I need this specific thing from this location, go get it, and I can make you this weapon. It's very interesting to think that, because like what you're saying, that what you basically would do is set up at workshops, or well, like I guess, yeah, set up at workshops, and when somebody rolls up and claims the workshop or tries to claim the workshop, you just like fucking like take them to the cleaners. And it sounds like you would do it very easily because of how you manage to I guess saying manipulate the game is in an incorrect way of phrasing it, but more so your expertise and your knowledge.
Yeah, become good at my craft, if you will.
Yeah. You learned enough about how the game worked to be able to manipulate it in your advantage. I guess some people would say that that's manipulation, but in a very real and actual sense, it's not manipulation. You just have studied the game enough. It's like saying somebody who is capable of counting cards is manipulating the game or cheating. And we're like, well, it's not really cheating. You just understand the game that deeply. And it's interesting to think that the actual like PvP element, the role playing, the character, the person to person interaction, that whole like becoming part of the story, because you were talking about the guy who had the camp that was basically like the weapon shop, and like that that very thing that Todd Howard was talking about, the community is the game kind of thing. It's so interesting that something like that resulted in someone like you, who some people would say that what you do is, trolling, griefing, stuff like that. But whether it is or whether it isn't is irrelevant to the point. The point is that it's still so interesting that sort of community individualism and that community self-insert, as it were, taking on the role. It's so interesting that results in somebody like you who is so experienced with the game that you become almost, a final boss in a sense.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And that, I always thought that was a real cool thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think like that's how we met. I remember you and like a couple, I think it was one or two of your friends.
Yeah. I actually remember that very vividly. Let me
let me hear your side of it. Yeah. Please.
So I think we actually talked about this after the fact. But basically what happened is, I have a friend, Winter. She has been in a couple of my videos in the past. I forget which one specifically. I know she's been in a 4th of July video, but she's been in a couple of other ones. We were playing Fallout 76. I don't remember why. I wasn't recording anything. We were just playing. And we went to the abandoned munitions factory, which is located in the very, like, almost dead center in the far north of the map in the Savage Divide territory. And it was a while ago, so I think maybe we were going there to print ammo, because at the time the like ammo printer device that you could have at your camp wasn't out yet. And the ammunitions factory was like that was hot property for practically everybody in the game, because like you go there, set up shop, and then like do a little bit of building, and then power the ammo press, and it just prints ammo for you, which back in the day was
a big deal.
Yeah, that was hot property. I'm pretty sure a lot of PvP groups, like, Fallout 5.0, the Enclave, Raiders, stuff like that, they would specifically claim that territory for purposes of printing ammo, and like a lot of traders did the same thing too. But so what happened is me and Winter went there, I believe, to try to take the location, because I think at the time somebody else had claimed it, but we were going there to also try to claim it for ourselves, or maybe it was just abandoned. I don't remember. The point is, we went there, and there was actually somebody else who showed up separate from us, just like one other person. And I think that might have actually been who you saw, because from what I'm remembering and what I'm recalling at the moment, I think you might have been there before anybody else, but you were, obviously waiting, most likely. And then that person showed up, and then I think we showed up at the same time, and then noticed him, and then we just started dying left and right, and we're all like, what's happening? Why are we dying? What the fuck? And you were using a Tesla rifle at the time, because it had the lightning thing. It could jump from person to person. So you were using it, and you were invisible. So and specifically because lighting in there is awful, we couldn't see you. So we're in there trying to figure out, like, where is he? And I think a couple times we were able to find you, and I think I got a couple shots off on you, but you just it felt like you were one hitting me. It was pretty ridiculous. But after a while, a very short while, the other guy left, and it was just me and Winter. And I think she was more she can get a little tilted sometimes. but after a short while, she's like, "All right, let's leave." And I'm like, "No, I'm interested now." And I tried, because I knew that voice command was a thing, so I tried to like call out to you a couple times, but my fucking voice chat thing wasn't working.
Yeah.
And so I'm struggling to try to fix that, and I could hear you a couple times. A couple times you called out, and then eventually, because I was on a Discord call with Winter, and I think I had her actually say like, "Oh, his mic's his area mic thing isn't working for some reason." And then I just remember you were eventually just like standing on the roof waiting for me, and I walked up and I got my mic working, and then we just like talked about like, hey, like what's the skinny here? What's going on? And then we talked
Why do
about,
I keep evaporating? Yeah.
right? Like how are you doing that? How are you taking like no damage? But like, it's, as you said, the people who take it in stride, the dialogue opens up. But it was still, at the time, it was fucking wild, because me specifically, I don't do a whole lot of like PvP stuff in any game because I suck at it. But it was mostly like, as you said, just the like, how are you doing that kind of stuff?
Yeah, that's awesome to hear, your side of it.
Mm-hmm.
So to kind of like piggyback on that, so like from my side, is the ammo factory is absolutely a hot ticket area. And when I would try to contest workshops and stuff like that, it's not a very popular thing to claim those workshops, because unfortunately, in that game is kind of, let's backtrack a little bit here. Fallout 76 as a whole has changed many times, like different iterations throughout its lifetime, if you will, since launch. And initially, like you said, it was created to be a player-driven environment where everyone could have like different skills, and some people could be better at this, some people could be better at that. Because it absolutely makes sense that like you'd have someone who would be really good at like crafting different weapons, stuff like that. Because they're investing those points into that, maybe they wouldn't be as good at maybe fighting other players, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So there could be like a necessity there. There could be, hey, you take care of like weapons and stuff like that, and I'll keep your camp safe. That could be like a cool dynamic that you could have going on. And those workshops, because there's probably like 12 or 15 different workshops, something like that maybe, are all over the map. And some of them more valuable than others. There are power plant workshops that you can get like the fusion cores from, or like the ammunition factory where you can get actual working ammunition from.
Right.
And like to your point, before those things were available at your own camp, that was it. That was the only way you could get those things. So if you didn't have a means to get your hands on these nigh infinite resources, because you have a friend who has been playing for a long time, or you have this or you have that, those would be the ways to go about getting those objects. So
the power plant workshop has also, maybe not defunct specifically, but as far as like a hot property location to be able to farm to farm fusion cores, it's actually been made semi-defunct, because I forget when, but Bethesda actually put out I think it might be a seasonal, like for the Nuka-Cola season that's going on right now. I think it might actually be an item on the board. I could be wrong, could be in the shop, but it's basically an item that allows you to recharge fusion cores.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. So basically, you just get fusion cores, use them, and then I don't know how long they take to actually recharge. Yeah, but you can plug them back. You can plug them into the thing. I don't know how many at a time. I've never used it. I don't use fusion cores, but yeah, you can just plug them in and recharge them. So the power plant workshop, where you can actually farm fusion cores, has more or less been made defunct. I mean, it still has value and stuff. Yeah. It's still obviously it has value, and it definitely has value to anybody who doesn't have the item. But as far as like wide scale usage, like it's taken a heavy hit.
Well, see, and that's a great example. Is that in the game of Fallout, it seems like the original shell of that game, the original heart and soul of that game, has like excellent components. And originally, player versus player combat was way more frequent. You know, you didn't necessarily have to do that awkward handshake. Lots of fights could break out. This, that, and the other. It's a good time. Same thing with these resources. Now, when you create a less of a need for those interactions, I feel like you take away from the game. I was always someone who would suggest that, like, hey, make it so the ammunition factory gave you 3 times as much ammo. Make it so those fusion cores were 3 times as impactful. You know, make it so it's a really good idea to take these workshops. So then more people would be invested in, hey, how do I hold these workshops?
There's actually a stronger incentive to actually take them and hold them, so it could be like a group thing.
Exactly. You know, and that can be a lot of fun. So kind of going back to how we met is right behind the munitions factory is like a cliff face, and I would just hang out on that cliff face and monitor traffic on the server. And what I would do, and kind of like going back to what I was saying, is like the acquiring of workshops from players wasn't as prolific as I would like them to be. You know, I would like to jump on a server and see that there's 5 or 6 workshops claimed. That means I have 5 or 6 targets. And unfortunately, that did not always happen. So what I would do is I would hop from server to server and look for claimed workshops, and then I would look for those players or like groups of players at those workshops, because they would tell me that there's like high traffic there. So going on to there, I didn't see anyone had claimed the workshop per se. And how that would work is if they had logged off the server, if you were already on the server when they logged off, it would show it as still claimed. If I came on and they were gone at that point, then it would show it as vacant, but it would still look claimed to you and to anyone else who was already on the server, right? So I would see that you and your friend and that other person, the other party, lots of people at this workshop. So that lets me know that there's a good chance this workshop's about to get claimed. And the moment that you claim a workshop, and it's like in your name, I can immediately contest it and begin combat. And when I do that, everyone in that zone becomes a target.
Right.
So then cue me sitting on like that cliff face like Batman, waiting for someone to make a move. And then like you guys begin to have your interaction. And I remember immediately annihilating that third party guy.
Yeah.
And watching like the route that was to unfold. And like to your point, you know, you're like, you know, like you did a good job kind of explaining that, but like to your point, like how it felt like you couldn't kill me or you couldn't put any damage on me, you know, that was intentional. That was like my build was intentional to seem that way. And I would say it was successful in that endeavor. But even despite that, I would still play my character as if it was like made of glass. So like while it was extremely strong and hard to kill, I would still play as if I wasn't. So then like you create these scenarios where you have players like yourself who are actively trying to find me, thinking that like if I can just find this guy, if I can just find this motherfucker, I'll get him. I'll get his ass. And then when you finally, it's like, you know, you see like the bad guy it's like a horror film where you're constantly like looking for the monster, right?
Mhm.
You never really get to see the monster, and then you finally find it, and you're like, I got him. And then you realize the monster's way bigger than you anticipated, and you're way in over your head.
Right.
And I loved being able to create that experience for others, whether they liked it or not. And I like to your credit, like I remember you trying to communicate and you weren't able. There was something wrong with your microphone,
Mm-hmm.
and your friend was like basically talking for you, and at that point you basically, because I remember you guys had like I said you had items and stuff that like when you died you had dropped, and I basically was like holding you guys hostage, where you're not gonna get your items back unless you take them from me. And I know in my head that you're not going to take them from me because I'm not going to let you kill me.
Yeah,
but like then it creates this.
I think that was a big part of the issue, because like it was just like a settings thing with the audio that I couldn't actually get back to you, and I think that was where a lot of the initial confusion came from, because obviously besides just getting my ass handed to me over and over again, it's like I just want my shit back, but like I couldn't relay that information to you, and it like that's where a little bit of the frustration set in, because it's like I just want my stuff back, and you weren't able to be like, oh, you want your stuff back, you got to come and get it. So I was under the assumption that you were just killing me just because I was still there, not because you knew that I was trying to get my items back, and you were basically like, you need to kill me first before you can get your items back. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing, is it's like the people who would just like give up and just like fold like a lawn chair, I had no mercy for.
Yeah.
If you at least tried, you show some resolve, you try to fight back, you try to like stand up for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I respect that a lot. I respect someone who is going to try hard in the face of adversity, even if you are, you don't have the means to kill me. Like, let's say like you're not spec'd in a kind of way where you can like actually do damage in PvP.
Mm-hmm.
If you're still sneaking around and like you try to get the drop on me, and like maybe you do, and like you come out around the corner blazing because you were strategic about it, and you throw the grenade, and like now you're shooting at me, and then suddenly you realize, oh my god, I'm not doing any damage. Oh my god, what is going on? And then you just get wasted.
Mm-hmm.
If we were on, if I gave you a clone of my character, you probably would have killed me just then,
mm-hmm.
because you outplayed me there, and I respect that a lot. And when people were good sports like that, then like I said, I respect that, and most of the friends I have in that game came from those interactions. One of my closest friends in that game went by Metafox. He really embraced the trader side of things, like where he would do lots of trades with people.
Mm-hmm.
Our first interaction is I was at the airport workshop, and I just kept killing him from different directions. Like I would just reposition and just annihilate him from one direction, reposition, kill him from another direction. And eventually he's like, hey man, I'm not going to beat you. I yield. Can you explain what's happening?
Right.
Because this is tremendous. I've never seen this before.
That's probably how our interaction would have ended like fucking 20 minutes earlier if my fucking mic was working.
Sure. Yeah, sure. But I think that Fallout, the direction that they've gone in with that, where you don't need those workshops really anymore. You don't need those things. People want them. People take them. People are, they don't know. But like, I think it is a cool concept that it's like, hey, those bodies of water over there are valuable, but mind you, there are sharks in those waters.
Mm-hmm.
So, the risk and reward needs to be great. Because the risk is like really great. The risk is huge. I'm coming for you.
Mm-hmm.
But the reward needs to match that. And if it doesn't, then you're going to have less people who are incentivized to do that.
Do you think that Because like a lot of people would probably describe the way in which you interact with the community, like the way you play. People would probably describe that as like griefing or bullying. I remember specifically one time. It wasn't with. There's only one time I've actually been like properly griefed in Fallout 76. I hear like all the time from other people who say that they get like griefed by some people. I've only ever experienced it once. Funnily enough, it was also at the ammunitions factory. I'd taken it, and then like I think just like 3 dudes in power armor just came out of nowhere and just killed me and took my stuff. And I'm all like, guys, and like I came back a couple of times. And I'm like, I'm just trying to get my stuff. Yeah. Fucking leave me alone. And they're all like,
right.
I got a little tilted. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, but I didn't go like fucking off the walls or anything. But they're all I had the Foshnot owl helmet on at the time, and somebody hit me with a flamer and killed me. They're like, anyone up for roast owl and shit like that? Right. And I'm like, oh man. But to the point, as I said, some people would describe that as like, you know, griefing, bullying, stuff like that. Kind of a multi-part question, but I guess the first one would be specifically either within the confines of that concept, that understanding of how some other people might view you in sort of a more unfairly antagonistic kind of way. Maybe unfairly is an unnecessary terminology, but like in a directly antagonistic way. Do you feel as if that sort of reflects maybe who you are, who you present yourself as, presented yourself as in the game specifically, or how you interact with other communities outside of Fallout?
So,
I guess more so specifically as an instigator of sorts, whether it be malicious instigation, reactive instigation, as opposed to aggressor in a sense.
Right. No, I understand what you're saying. So to that point, you know, where, you know, is this griefing? Is it harassment? I would say that it is yes and no. Mm-hmm. You know, have I done my fair share of like trolling people and like harassing people and stuff like that? I'm like, sure.
But for you specifically, would you classify like, because trolling's kind of a broad spectrum, like a subjective, like, you know, to each their own definition kind of thing. Would you classify trolling as like bullying or griefing or anything like that? Or would you classify it as something a little bit more like lighthearted? Like if there was like a spectrum, would that be closer to like, you know, like general tomfoolery, or would that be closer to like hostile stuff, just for like context?
Right. Well, so I would say that like it really just would depend on the response I would get. Mm-hmm. You know, if someone was a good sport and they're like, you son of a bitch, like, you know, and then they respawn and they're gonna come kill me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm like, okay, so now it's on, like we're gonna fight. If people respond and they're just like screaming at me, blah 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 blah, mm-hmm. like, yeah, you're just gonna feed that fire more. Yeah, you know, I remember a great example is, like I said, like I feel like we had a solid interaction after the course of some time. You know, and eventually I believe you got your stuff back and we became friends afterwards. Mm-hmm. Another individual, you know, he's yelling at me, screaming at me, and he's there with what I presume is his girlfriend or wife, mm-hmm. which is an interesting concept because that's not something I'm used to in the sense of like couples playing video games together like that. Mm-hmm. Because like now you just made yourself a huge target. Right. Because now I'm going to kill your wife and then I'm going to shit fuck about that right to you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, wait, you're just gonna let me murk your wife? Is this the kind of man you are? She's gonna think about this next time, you guys do anything, blah blah, blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
And man, the response you get from people is tremendous. Because then all I want you to do is engage in this game with me.
Mm-hmm.
And because I've pushed the right buttons for you, here you come. And like the best way to avoid that is to just leave. Is to just walk away, get away. But people get so engrossed in it, man. I remember there was one where I could hear kids laughing in the background. And like this guy was like he's talking shit and like he was just getting smashed. And I'm like, dude, even your kids are laughing at you. Even your kids think you're a joke, dude. Like I have no idea what they're laughing about, but oh my god, he got mad.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, And it's like moments like that, they're hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is like if he wouldn't have been so angry from the jump, none of that would have happened. And furthermore, I can't kill you if you're not in a workshop. If you're not in a accepted PvP zone. And when you go to take the workshop, it says, hey, other players could come to contest this. Are you sure you want to do that?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, this isn't like unknown knowledge per se. People, make these decisions and then they don't want repercussions.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, if you're not geared for PvP, you're not going to do well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you could be geared for PvP and still get your ass handed to you by someone who just knows what they're doing. But if you're not geared for PvP and then you enter in an arena of PvP and then you don't do well, you can't be mad at anyone besides yourself. And just in the sheer sense of like, well, hey man, I had to take these certain skills, I had to take these certain perks, I had to build myself a very certain way, which means I can't do other things. There's other things I can't do. If I really want to truly optimize my PvP build, I can't have all these crafting perks.
Mm-hmm.
I can't have all these, quality of life things. I have to be pretty bare bones with my perk cards and stuff like that. I have to be pretty bare bones with what I am bringing to the table.
It's kind of how, it's kind of like how I've spec'd my my character in a sense. I actually took a lot of inspiration from your build, like the ins and outs of your build specifically, and applied it to my own build. So now basically it would kind of be interesting to see who would win in a fight now, because a lot of my armor is more spec'd to specifically like avoiding or absorbing damage, and then my perk cards are stacked so that if I'm standing still specifically, I have a lower chance of getting hit, and if I do, I take less damage. But then I have myself equipped with fast spitting vampire weapons, so I basically just stand. Basically, I stand in a location and just shoot at anything that's shooting at me, and if it hits, it heals me for whatever damage I may have lost by standing there. And I like if I can shoot fast enough, I just don't die.
yeah, that's a really fun way to play that.
Mm-hmm. For the I'm sorry, you were making a point.
No, so are you referring to Sentinel power armor? I believe that's what it's called, or not power armor, but like Sentinel, the property where when you're standing still, you don't take damage.
Yeah, there's another one. It adds like an additional max, like totally decked out at like full health. I think like an additional 35 energy and ballistic resistance. And if you apply that and the Sentinel legendary, which in and of itself, those two specifically on the same armor would probably be close to a god tier roll, just based on how they work together. But you basically pair that with a fast spinning vampire weapon like a flamer or a minigun, and then it basically makes it so that the higher your health, so if you're at full health, you get plus 35 from each armor plate, so like chest, arms, stuff like that. And then you get the like 12-15% chance to just avoid damage altogether. And so yeah, like you do it right, you basically don't die, like as I said previously.
Sure. Well, so I don't know because it's been a minute since I've really dove into all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So like updates could have changed things, and
Mm-hmm.
they could have changed different um, dynamics. I know when I played that Sentinel Assassin power armor wasn't a thing. You couldn't get legendary traits on power armor at the
Mm-hmm.
time. I know, and since then they've added that. I don't know if they've added those perks per se, but they've added so that you can get legendary traits on power armor. But um, the thing is that I used to fight against people who had those traits on power armor because it was like illegally injected onto those pieces of equipment and then injected into the game.
Basically,
so I dealt with a lot of that.
For context, you're basically saying that your build was strong enough so that you would be able to defeat people who were in power armor, which objectively is the strongest armor in the game, but more so were made even more powerful by the fact that they had illegal legendary effects on them.
Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, there is a huge cash market for those kind of items outside of the game, like real cash market. To the tune of like people pay. I remember back then people would pay like $40 for that kind of power armor.
I think Bethesda's really like cracked down on that. I mean, it's obviously like since day one been illegal to sell in-game items for real-world money or to trade in-game items for real-world money. I don't know how big the market is now, but I do remember that was definitely like some deep black market stuff back in the day.
Sure. But so then, when we're talking about like PvP on like that scale, those are like the big fish in the pond that I would like really enjoy going after because like I know now because like now the shit talking is immense. Hey man, you spent $70 on your armor and your weapons, and I'm still handing you your ass over and over and over again. You pathetic piece of you know what I mean? And like you say stuff like that to people, and they start losing their minds, right? I used to have a thing that I could just rapidly put down in workshops,
right?
That would just be like, essentially billboards that I had like pre-made that I could like rapidly put down that would like have like shit talking like messages on them. Like so like what there was like Fallout Premium, there's like $12.99. So I used to have like a billboard. It would be like you pay $12.99 a month for another man to like beat you down and like take all your stuff. And it would just like be in like big neon letters. So like I would murder them. They'd come back, kill them again, and then they'd come back, and there'd be like a billboard in the middle of the arena with like big, lit up letters, like saying stuff like that, and people would just get so tilted.
Yeah,
people would just start losing their minds.
I think after we touched base, like after we parted, after our interaction, we went somewhere, and then we went back to the ammo shop just to see if you were still there. And you weren't still there, but you had left a sign that said something along the lines of like an atrocity happened here. And then I think you had like signed by Cazador, not signed by, but like hyphen Cazador.
Yeah. A terrible massacre has occurred here.
Yeah, that was it. So basically like you're saying that, while at times you could be very instigative against people, more so verbally specifically, because as you're describing, you're playing under very specific conditions and very specific rules.
Almost, yeah.
Mostly because the game is limited in a sense to how PvP works, as you were saying. There's a handshake that has to happen. And that handshake is basically you shoot somebody and then they shoot back, and you both have to hit each other, and then PvP is engaged. So it's not like you were just going out and murdering random people. You were going to a workshop that was claimed, engaging with that workshop to initiate PvE or PvP combat, and then fucking wiping the floor with them.
Giving them the business. Yeah. No, exactly. So then it's like, is that griefing? Like, I don't know. You don't have to be there. You don't have to engage in this fight. You don't have to engage in this combat. The setting of Fallout, like literally, what are we talking about? We're talking about this post-apocalyptic wasteland. Well, you're telling me right now that if like I'm in America, if America was a post-apocalyptic wasteland, that people wouldn't be shooting each other with guns, people wouldn't be like taking what other people have. I remember a really famous example, or not famous, but one that really stuck with me, is I had an econ teacher like way back in the day, and he was like talking about like just the world and stuff, and he's like, listen, you can either climb the apple tree and pick all the apples, or you could be the guy who's waiting for the other guy to climb the apple tree and pick all the apples, and when his hand is full with a basket of apples, you slam him over the head with a club, and then you take all the apples for yourself, so you didn't have to climb the tree.
Right.
Like, which one are you going to be? And like, the reality of that is like, if you don't want that to happen to you, you have to be able to defend yourself. And like I said, once upon a time, I was smashed into the floor by somebody, and I said, hey, I'm never letting that happen again. These people are like individuals who get like upset over like those interactions. Like, hey man, you could either do something about it, or I guess you can leave. But you need to pick a lane, man, because right now you just keep respawning and dying. So I don't know what to tell you, And people don't like that answer. But to, like I said, your credit, like you're like, hey, so that sucked. How can I change things? How can I become stronger? And I would argue that like by becoming stronger, it's going to make the game more enjoyable. Becoming stronger in like different ways and different aspects. I wish that more people saw it that way, but at the same time, I came from playing like Diablo 2 back in the day when I was in like middle school, and like getting absolutely smashed by level 99s who had just no mercy, dude. They're just like casting meteorite strike on top of like waypoints that you need to get back to your corpse and stuff to like get your gear back.
Right. So
then you walk through the waypoint, you just immediately get slammed by another meteor. Like, it's just endless destruction, And so it's like that is way more brutal in my eyes of just getting murdered over and over and over than like the interactions that you would see in Fallout. But not everyone saw it that way. Not everyone always perceived it as it's just a game. It's just a game. And some people would take it, super way too far. Some people are like way too crazy about it. I try to stay away from some of that stuff. There'd be people who would, I would always describe it as getting into resource wars, because without really getting too sweaty about it, one of the strategies you can do in Fallout is to use your action bar as almost like a shield, so that like when you take damage, instead of the damage going to you, most of it goes to your action bar. And
that's specifically one of the I think it's a tip that I learned from you, but that's something that I've applied to my build. It's like a combination of serendipity, dodgy, and then I think one other thing, but it applies specifically to the action bar. So one of the reasons I don't take a whole lot of damage is specifically because it has to take a chunk. It either has to take a chunk of my action bar, or a part of the damage that would be applied to me is instead applied to the action bar. So
correct.
In order for me to like take full damage to begin chipping away at that boosted high HP that I already have, you got to start chipping away at my action bar. And because I have a big action bar, it's basically like I have two or three health bars, because first you have to get through the action bar, then you have to get through my boosted ammo, then you have to actually get at my health, which I can gain back because of my vampire minigun.
Right. Exactly. So something that you could do is you take the cola nut perk, which makes it so all your cola products are like extra beneficial, and you spam Nuka-Cola Quantums, and it's something that you can do very effectively on PC. And people on Xbox, I've actually watched it, and it's like a complete like disaster because they don't have hotkeys, so they have to open up their menu and like drink like 15 of them. And then like go back to fighting, like in the middle of combat. So like what they'll do, and it's so stupid looking, is they'll be in power armor or like they'll have like a jetpack and they'll fly real high in the air.
Right.
And once they hit the peak of that flight, they'll open up their menu and drink all of these items. So that like hoping that because they're way up in the air, they're hard to hit.
Yeah.
So as they're plummeting to the ground, they're restoring themselves, and then once they land or get close to the ground, then they're ready to fight some more.
That's pretty smart. I don't think I would have thought of something like that. But again, I'm not a big PvP guy, so I don't think about stuff like that. But that's pretty clever given the limitations of the Xbox.
Well, so then it's funny. So as someone who is not a console player, seeing that, you're like, oh my God, this looks retarded. Like, what is going on here? So we just would hit, we'd have it on a hotkey, like 1 through 4 or something like that. And you just, spam, a couple colas, get your AP right back full. And so that was a viable strategy.
Yeah.
And I remember that people would abuse that. And I initially disliked that method. And then I started going around and I wanted to see if it was possible to obtain those things on your own. Like, was it actually possible to get a substantial amount of Nuka-Colas Quantums, in the sense that like you could feasibly spam them in combat. And what I learned is that if you build up enough relationships with enough people, you just kind of go around like, hey, this is what I'm looking for. Does anyone have anything to trade? You'll get, 3 here, you get 2 here, you get 5 from this guy, you got 10 from this guy who's been saving them up. You can buy them from different stores, like in like really, really small quantities. And then, you could have an amount of them. And if you only use a few of them in combat, which is something I would do because I wouldn't get hit very often because you couldn't find me very often. But if you did it like you play like that, then like that was totally feasible. Now, what's not feasible, and kind of getting back to what I was talking about with resource wars, is that you have these people who have abused the game and have abused like the inventory system, and they have a damn near infinite amount of those resources, right? So like I've come across people who have posted pictures of like their inventory, and they're sitting on like 2 to 5 million quantums.
Jesus.
So then it's like, in theory, you could have an auto clicker who is just hitting the hotkey button, just fueling your character with these quantums.
Right.
And I mean, you could just have it just run, and you could just have that on during a fight. And like even well, I wouldn't say that. I was gonna say even I wouldn't be able to kill you. I've found ways around that. It would
just be a lot harder.
It would be almost impossible. You'd have to one-shot them. And typically in the game, that is not something that's feasible because there is a damage cap of 110.
Interesting.
So you can only do 110 damage at one time. But I found ways around that, like through tricks of the trade. And I've experienced those players before. There was the leader of this Chinese PvP clan. I actually have like a really good clip of it. I killed him with one shot, and you can actually see it happen originally because the farther you are away from a target with certain weapons, you have damage drop off. And the initial shot I take on him with the damage drop off, you could see his health go from 100% to 20%. So like it would have killed him at close range. But then you see it immediately rocket back to full instantly, and it's because of all the resources he's using. So he's basically doing what I previously described, where he's just like spamming those resources at such a high frequency that any damage he takes, he immediately restores it, right?
Wow. But
then he got closer, and that's where his mistake truly lied. So once he got closer, I was able to be within that critical kill range. if you think about it, the 110 damage cap, right? If someone has a lot of health, if someone has any amount of health, right? 110 could be substantial or it could be minuscule. A great example is if you don't mind me asking. So on your character, like typically, like let's say we were to like run into each other, how much health do you think your character like would sit at?
Oh God, I don't remember. It's been a minute since I've actually opened up 76 and done some stat stuff. I want to say the last time I checked my health, I was at like 400, something like that. I could be way off like that, but for sake of conversation, let's say 500 even, and more so I don't have to open up the game and check.
No, of course. So I would say 500 would be very high, at least back then. I don't know how it is now. Things can be a little different, but 500 is pretty high. Typically, you'd see people with like 200 to 300 health. So then, if the damage cap is 110 and you're actually hitting for 110, you kill pretty quick.
Right.
But the people that I would be playing against, and myself included, through natural means, but through very advanced means of like knowing what you're doing and like creating this for yourself, you could be looking at like 800 to 900 health, which would then give you a significantly larger grace period to be like, oh God, I'm taking damage. Let's heal that. Let's fix that. So then you got to think, if I'm able to one-shot somebody with 800 health, how much damage am I doing? And that's where it would get kind of cool. And that's where I really enjoyed like doing that min-max stuff. Because then it kind of found a way to deal with people who were taking advantage of different systems. Because the reality is, if you're truly just collecting nuclear quantums and resources like naturally by like just going around making trades with people, going to different vending machines, this, that, and the other, you'll never, you might have a lot, over a couple months time, you might have 500, 600 quantums, but to spam them in such a like with such little regard for like the actual investment. I mean, you'd have to have thousands of them, millions of them, right, to like not care. And that's where I think it gets different, and so I would either try to insta kill those people, or I would just avoid those resource wars, because that just wasn't very fun to me.
It becomes more of a thing where, one, you are engaging with both legitimate and illegitimate players, and the ones that get like super tilted and get real mad at you are either doing it because they're playing illegitimately and they've never had to actually deal with like losing like that, or they're the legitimate players who are losing constantly and are getting mad about it, but more specifically, they are in and of themselves taking on the onus of engaging in PvP. Like, I mean, me specifically, I've more so rationalized it in my brain. I don't like playing super hard games, right? So like I play a lot of Civ 6, right? I don't like playing against, yeah, right. It's fucking amazing. I don't like playing on deity level just because the game is sort of stacked against you in that case. And for some people, yeah, that's fun. It's more challenge, engages your brain more actively. But for me, I mean, yes, there is still that challenge. Like, Dark Souls, for example, like the Souls series in general is made to be hard. In some cases, it's made to actively fuck with you and actively like piss you off. But
right,
it's still that challenge. Like, it is something that you can get over. But if you're bad at it, it's your fault you're bad at it. And I never enjoyed those games specifically because I don't like hard AI, because there's a very different feeling when you lose to a computer compared to like when you lose to a person. right?
Sure.
For good
It's
or
way
bad.
more personal.
Yeah, but sometimes that personal loss works in like a positive way. So like if you lose to somebody in like, Call of Duty or Fallout 76 or just any other game that has like a PvP, a person versus person engagement, when you lose to that other person, it could be, oh, like fucking, like this is bullshit, you suck, I'm so pissed off that I lost. But then at the same time, you play like, Mario Party, right? Or some other party game with like your friends or just random people. There's a stronger likelihood that you will experience a more positive, like, oh, I lost. But in a sense, even in like the angry sense, you kind of feel better because you lost to somebody else. It was in a sense a worthy challenge. It was an actual person versus person interaction, and you lost because the other person was just better than you. That's fine. But when you're losing to like an AI or like the game itself, you're losing to a computer, like that's not fun. Like there's no sense of, oh, like I lost, but this other person won because they, were just more skilled than me. It's like, no, they just, made the computer no longer easy. And
they made it just artificially harder instead of like making them play more strategically. They do that a lot in Civilization, where like they'll just give them more resources, they'll give them additional technologies instead of just like making it like play more intelligently, which is that's a much more difficult thing to do as a developer. How do I program this AI to be able to do these things? I remember StarCraft, kind of going back to the day, StarCraft 1, I used to just get like shit on by fucking Korean kids constantly nonstop because there was no matchmaking to be heard of. So you're just getting smashed by these people who are just so much better than I am. And kudos to them.
That's also not a, I just want to preface, because I don't know who's in general is going to be listening to this, but that's more so like, that's not like a stereotype or a biasy thing. Like Korean players specifically are just stupid good at StarCraft. They have StarCraft like before like esports became a thing. Like South Koreans specifically were so like massively up on StarCraft that they would put like billboards and posters and stuff on like buses and the sides of planes.
What an awesome time to be alive, right?
I know, right? Like pre esports South Korea.
I remember hearing and then reading about that they like would like play StarCraft during recess at school.
I believe it.
Like, how cool is that, man? That people are that involved, that you have enough people that like are interested in it, that like people are actually sitting around during recess and watching it. I remember like way back in the day, dude, I used to like play like Yu-Gi-Oh and stuff at recess. And I can't imagine how cool it would be to like watch a group of friends, like these two people are going at it in StarCraft, and then you have like a whole friends group who's like sitting around them, like watching it and cheering it on. Like that'd be so cool.
Right.
But so like that is a norm of like, from like a social and societal side of things.
Yeah.
So then these dudes are honing their craft, playing against their friends in school all day, and then they come home and just annihilate, 12-year-old Patrick.
Right.
Just trying to like, put his base together, and
like, I just like being the Protoss because they have energy spheres and that's cool.
Hey man, do you leave my pylons out of this?
Like, okay? Bruh.
Yeah. But so then in StarCraft 2, I remember I never got to play it or anything like that, but I know that someone made a artificial intelligence that was like learning like Grandmaster StarCraft 2 player like strategies, and then like playing against real people and like handing like real Grandmaster people at StarCraft like losses.
Yeah.
Through like AI intelligence, and not necessarily being like having more resources or having faster build times or anything like that, but just like outplaying these people. And I think that's very cool. That's very cool to play against, and that gives you replayability. And I think that's where with like Fallout and stuff like that is it was always replayable because you never know what you were going to get when it comes to like fighting people. You never know who you're going to encounter. There'd be days where you're just smashing people who are not equipped to handle you in any way, shape, or form. And then every now and again, you would get like a big fish that would like enter the arena, and like it would be like an actual fight, and like those would be like some really cool moments. Like I said, like when I hopped on a server and I saw the leader of that Chinese clan or whatever, PvP clan, I was like frothing at the mouth. I could not help myself. I'm like, I have to bring him down. And I'm like, it's like one of those moments, Mom, get the camera. I started like, I like immediately like turned on like all my Twitch stuff and like started like streaming that, like so I could like secure that clip.
Right.
But like to your point where it's like I had become like almost like the end boss of like Fallout, stuff like that. Like those are like the prize moments that like I really remember, taking down like critical and key people. And I'm sure he never knew who I was. I'm sure he was extremely confused when he instantly died.
Right.
Because I'm sure that never happens to him. Because like I've never been insta-killed by anything. So I'm sure like when that happened, he's like, what the fuck is going on here? And like I remember once he dropped, all of a sudden like that server was just like flooded with like all of his like clan members and stuff.
Right.
So like I knew that like at that point like I got on someone's radar. So that was cool.
Do you think that I guess because we kind of tried to define specifically like how you were engaging with the community and whether or not the way in which you were engaging with the community, whether intentional or otherwise, was a could be considered like bullying or griefing or anything like that, specifically to like define it as that sort of like, I guess I would say that because Fallout 76 isn't PvP specific, like it's a PvP game, but like the PvP element isn't like the main part of the game. So whenever somebody wants to engage with PvP, they kind of have to seek it out. Would you say that something similar to the way, I guess that specifically, like in like actively going forward and looking to engage in PvP in a game that, while including PvP, isn't specifically tailored for PvP, do you think that is something that you would recommend that more people do less, and under either condition, whether or not you think it's a net gain or a detractor as far as the community in general? So in other words, you probably know that Fallout 76, a lot of people in the community and a lot of people outside of the community that more so know about what goes on in Fallout 76 think that it's just a very positive game. Like everybody is like super helpful and stuff like that.
Kumbaya. Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I totally understand what you're saying here.
Yeah. Like, again, do you think that it would be beneficial for the community, for gamers in general, to engage more actively in PvP, or do you think in like the larger scope it would be more of a hindrance for players, community, things of that nature?
That's a good question. I think that right, so like it's a game, so it's not real life, because real life would be way more dramatic, it would be way more impactful, but you're playing this game to be entertained. Well, why do you watch a Marvel movie? Do you watch a Marvel movie to to see the interactions between characters? Like maybe, but typically you're watching it, and that is part of the plot. The bigger plot is you have this group of heroes that are trying to take on a villain. You have these group of individuals that are trying to accomplish a goal of some sort. And without these villains, without Thanos, without the Joker, Batman wouldn't be nearly as interesting. Without, Thanos, the sacrifice Iron Man, spoiler alert, makes wouldn't be nearly as impactful. So it's like, when you look at like the community as a whole, you're going to have people who are going to be bullies. You're going to have people who are going to harass others, which just means that like now you are presented with an opportunity to be the hero. You're presented with an opportunity to fight this guy off and like save the day. And like as many times as I have come across people who are just mind their own business, who were building in a workshop, that was a poor life choice. And I have absolutely obliterated those people. And then they got mad, and I've like trash talked those people, and to great hilarity. As many times as that's happened, I've come across people who are at tilted conflicts with other people like myself. And just the same way that a fish will bite onto a hook, and then you're reeling it in, and then a shark comes along and eats that fish. My God, is it fun to absolutely come along and crush that person who is being a bully to somebody else.
To be the big fish, yeah.
Sure.
Has there ever been a situation in which you engage in I don't know, calling it forced PvP doesn't seem genuine, but like the style in which you engage with other players, has there been an example of when you have done that and you felt specifically not bad because the other person, like they got super angry and you feel like, oh man, I feel bad for that person because they're, so angry or tilted all the time. But has there ever been a situation in which you have engaged with somebody in that manner and then later felt bad about that specific engagement?
I see what you're saying.
Because like you're obviously going out there looking for sort of like a challenge, right? But has there been a situation in which you've gone and looked for that challenge and the person that you thought you may find it from was a lot less how do I say it? A lot less, or a lot more impacted by the way in which you engage them, and then you later felt bad about how you engage them?
I see what you're saying. Not. Yes and no. I think that if this was like things like actually doing, like, no, I wouldn't. You can't just go around just like punching small kids, right?
Yeah.
But I remember there was one where we tricked somebody. So a cool thing you could do is if they hit you and you hit them back, and now you've created this handshake, anything they own is fair game to be destroyed, right? So then if you do this and like they're near their like base that they've built, like their home base, you can completely level their home base.
Right.
And all of the resources and all the work and time and effort that goes into that. Now, granted, if you have the resources to rebuild, you could just literally hit like a repair button and it'll just repair all those resources. But if you don't have the resources to rebuild, your base is going to be out for a while. And I think there was one individual who they picked a fight at a workshop a little too close to their home base. And as a result, I pulverized their like giant base that they built. And I remember like I could hear them screaming like over voice chat that they did not have the resources to rebuild that.
Oh.
And they were having a bad day.
So it was more so not like, some 12-year-old was having a bad day at school, wanting to, just play around in Fallout 76. They pick up a workshop and then you come in and
just dunk all over them. No, it wasn't quite like that.
Yeah, it was more this person just bit off a bit more than they could chew, and you just had the opportunity to add a little bit of additional extra salt into the wounds. And would you say in retrospective that maybe even if warranted, given the circumstances, maybe you went a little bit too far, or would you more so define it like, like he threw a punch in a fight that he had no way of winning and just had to...
Yeah, well, it's like it's all fair in love and war,
Yeah.
So it's like if you don't want like The Sims is a game that exists, right? So if you just want like building simulator and you want things to be all kumbaya, hunky dory, just do that. Furthermore, if I wipe, and this is something else that I think kind of like detracts from all of that, is that like if you get your stuff smashed in and you don't have the resources for it, go to somebody's workshop or like their base, and just like start talking to them. There's a 1,000% chance that they're gonna be like, "Oh, I have those things. Let me build that back for you," and they're gonna build it right back up for you. It's not that serious. If the game was like when it first came out and people didn't just have a whole bunch of resources, because I think the economy of that game is kind of like lost in the sauce as far as it goes, because like people just have those resources now. Like people don't need power cells or like fusion cores anymore. People just have like an infinite amount of them, and if you don't have one, just ask somebody and they probably do. They're like, hey man, I have like 2 mule accounts just full of fusion cores. Like, do you want any of them? Please take them off my hands. But like, so like all that stuff could just be rebuilt. I think, and what I would have really liked for them to do with Fallout is first of all these injected items and weapons and stuff like that, like you got to get them out of there. You got to get them out of your game.
Like the legendary the legendary, like, what is it?
Armor.
Yeah, the oh no, it's legacy weapons they call them now, like what is it, flamers that have like explosive legendaries on them. Yeah.
Explosive laser rifles, stuff like that. Like you have to
I think that they have actually done that. I think in like the most recent patch, they have set it so that legacy weapons like that are either removed from the game or like are made even less viable. Yeah.
So I was actually because I knew I was going to be talking with you soon. I was touching base with my buddy Fox about the state of that game. Now, mind you, I have like 2,000 hours in that game. He's got like 5,000 hours in that game, which
Holy
is
crap.
a lot.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like touching base with him. I'm like, how is the state of things? Because he was trying to get me to come back for a while, and he was kind of like saying, he's like, the PvP elements in that game have changed a lot. Basically, because they've removed a lot of those legacy items, they didn't necessarily adjust how strong and tanky you could be. So it's really hard to kill people now that like don't want to be killed. It's like really I don't want to say it's impossible, but like there's like a very few amount of avenues in which you can make that happen. One of them is a cryolator, because there's not a good resistance against cold per se. So you're able to like punch through like a lot of armor and stuff of that nature. And then even if you are able to live long enough to fight off the cryolator usage, you can get frozen, which your character will begin to slow down tremendously.
Right.
And what they could do, because again, no, this is like pro tip here. If you freeze somebody and you walk up and you bash them, they will go into like the flinch animation. And because they're frozen, that flinch animation will last like 9 seconds long. And during those 9 seconds, they can't use any supplies. So you hit them, and then you just do whatever damage you want to them, and they can't heal. They can't heal. They can't drink stim pack or Nuka-Colas. They can't. There's nothing they could do. So if you have enough ammunition, and again, we're talking about those people that get into those resource wars, that is a means to which you could just win through attrition, if you will. Which is not great.
No.
but like you're saying, like I think that they need to do away with some of those abusable mechanics. They need to do away with a lot of those injected weapons and injected armor. And I think you take care of that problem, and then you start seasons the same way Path of Exiles and like Diablo do their seasons, where every season you start brand new, fresh. So that means that everyone would be on the same playing field. Everyone would be on the same, field, to which they're like, hey, so I don't have a buddy who just has 40,000 fusion cores. I need to go get some. How do I get some? Well, there's a power plant. Okay, I'm going to go secure the power plant. Well, there are other people that are also trying to secure the power plant. And now we have honest fights. You have honest fights between, honest people. And I think it'd be much more incentivized to kind of have that organic interaction. But that's a lot of work. And I think the other thing too is that with like Bethesda, with Fallout, and I would say the majority of their player base and fan base are people who just enjoy those like happy-go-lucky interactions with other people in their community and builders. So there's not a whole lot of aggressive individuals. There's not a whole lot of people who are willing to put themselves in a situation where they might not win.
So you're talking about something kind of a little bit more like Rust, where like every 30 or 60 days or whatever, a map is reset, all the buildings are removed, any gear that people have amassed is gone, and everybody just starts fresh.
Sure. I think something like that would be a lot of fun. I think
I would agree, but I would say that people should be able to keep their levels, because even like levels and perks, because even if you're like at a high level and perk, but you lose like all your equipment and stuff, you still have access to those cards, kind of like a new game plus kind of situation, where all the resources are gone and everything. Maybe you still have your plans, right? Obviously you still, you know all your plans for like stuff you can build in camp, any pre-made camps that you have or have set on the map. Maybe those are still there, but they just haven't been built. So if you go back to the location and you're like, hey, I want to rebuild this, it's like, okay, cool, you can, but first you need to gather the necessary materials, and then that could then in turn, as you were saying, lead to those kind of interactions where it's like, hey, I need this workshop because I need like 6 billion wood or whatever, and I need to just farm this for a little bit, and the other person's like, hey, no, I need that for this reason, and then there's that actual PvP engagement thing. We didn't touch on it at the beginning, but as you sort of alluded to, you were, if I understand correctly, you were banned from Fallout 76.
Sure, yeah.
Was your character actually deleted, or were?
Yeah. So Cazador is nothing more than dust at this point.
Dust and memories.
Dust and memories, right?
But you can like start a new game.
Yeah. So it was a real interesting situation. Not necessarily the ban itself. The ban is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
So in Fallout, if you get your account flagged an X amount of times, it will be automated to put like strikes against your account. And over 2,000 hours, I amassed enough people complaining about my account, of just like destroying people, that as a result, my account was kind of given the 3 strikes you're out rule.
Right.
And eventually what they did was after the second strike, it was like a 4-day suspension.
Right.
And mind you, it's their game, they can do whatever they want, but they should be better about communicating like what's going on. Because for like 3 days, like 2 days, I had no idea what was wrong with my account.
Right.
They didn't know, no one had like, I didn't get like an email saying like what had happened. And it wasn't, in fact, now I remember it correctly, it wasn't until I was able to log back on that I received an email from Bethesda saying, hey, your account was temporarily suspended because of, X, Y, and Z, basically like just enough people have like reported you for being inappropriate. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And after the third strike, they just delete everything that's on your account. So all of your characters, all of your secondary characters, all your stuff, everything just gets wiped. All your items, all your plans, all progress. It's like if you had a brand new account. The only thing I think that would probably stay persistent is the stuff that you had bought in the Atom store or whatever.
Oh yeah, that would kind of have to stay persistent because
Right.
you paid real world money for that.
Sure. So like that would be it. But
Yeah.
other than that, everything's gone.
Mm.
And that was a weird time for me because that was when I found that out. I had just come back from New York. I live in Indiana. I just come back from New York, where we had a little personal disclosure is my wife at the time was pregnant with our daughter, and we had found out that there was like complications, and we'd lost that pregnancy, and we had to go to New York for like a medical procedure to like take care of that.
Right.
And so like it was a really crappy time, and then I came home to find out that my account was wiped.
Damn.
So I was like, ugh, like
Yeah.
1-2 punch, man.
Right.
Jeez. But so then, at that point, I was just like, I had invested so much time into the game. I just didn't want to do that again.
Yeah.
And I think like my account was like level like 700, level 800 something. Like it was like a lot.
Yeah.
And
you were up there.
And the big thing with that is that when you are high level in that regard, you have access to some of the legendary perk cards. And because I was such a high level, I had like my build like completely like fleshed out with like all the legendary perk cards. And I knew, because like I have a lot of like great ties to the community, that like at the drop of a hat, I could have someone power level me, and I could have someone resupply me with all the goods and bells and whistles that I would need to like completely restore my character, if you will.
Right.
But to me, what was really frustrating is no amount of all of that could restore, like, because like that would get you leveled up to where like you have all your perk cards, but like it would be a monumental task to like get back to level 800. As far as like unlocking those legendary perk cards, and it would be a bummer to be like a shell of my previous self as far as strength goes.
Right.
Because like they're not the be all end all. Like if you don't have them, that you can still win. But I know that I think it would impact me, because in my head I would know that I was once stronger than I am currently.
Yeah.
And I would be like, I should be able to beat this person, but I can't because I don't have these things that they have. And I should have them.
Right.
I should have them, but I don't.
Yeah.
So, but like around that time, I just found something else to play, and it helped me kind of like get over that. I'd never played Destiny or Destiny 2 at that point, and it was a real nice. I started playing Destiny 2 right after that, and it was like a real nice, well-polished game, if you will, to kind of like sink my teeth in, to kind of like get over the FOMO of murdering people in Fallout, because I did miss a bit, and then, it was really unfortunate is that when they nuked those accounts, they nuked my friends list. So like there are people that I would see quite often and like talk to quite often, like people that I do like lots of trades with, that like I would come around, and then all of a sudden I'm just gone, and like there's no explanation, and if there's anything I regret, it was like not being able to like say tell those people like what happened and like say goodbye to some of those people, or not, or just like I would hate for those people to think that like I just didn't want to be their friend anymore.
Yeah, that's rough. Yeah, that's a Bethesda. They're like, I don't know. Bethesda is a company. It's got incentives. It's got things it has to do. It's got obligations and stuff. But like, there's always those situations, even when they're trying to do something that's like subjectively beneficial to them as a company, or them as far as maintaining the community and stuff like that. Like subjectively, there's decisions they make that like maybe in the moment don't seem that big a deal, but sometimes they do have impacts like that, where you lose out on friends and stuff like that because the person, or the person that you like remove from the game, they lose out on connections like that. There, I wanted to this. So what is today? Today is January 8th. This podcast will probably be coming out sometime in early February. So at the time that it actually comes out, this will be probably way big old news. Are you on Twitter?
Not. I mean, like I have an account. I usually just use to like check for sports news and stuff like that, because apparently that seems to be the place that they break stuff
Right.
on there. But I have an account, if that's what you're asking. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, I guess just like on Twitter in general, and I guess that technically counts. It's interesting because you mention a lot of times you engage. It doesn't sound like you were a massive like role player in a sense. Like you weren't part of like, Fallout 5.0 or like the Vultures or anything like that, but you did in some semblance role playing esque things.
Sure. I've killed a lot of raiders, by the way.
Right.
I'm familiar with them. I've killed a lot of those people.
It's so like what is this? On January 3rd, I don't know if this is the original source that put this information forward, or whether they were retweeting it, but I saw this account specifically. Winners use drugs at Winners use drugs on Twitter. They shared an image that is from, so like going back a little bit, in like the early days, there were a couple of primary groups that started up just doing roleplay stuff. There was Fallout 5.0, who were doing first responders faction role playing. They were basically like, cops. They would go around like making sure like, hey, is like nobody's breaking any rules or anything like that, crafting their own stories, stuff like that, like very, very harmless stuff. The Vultures are a raider role-playing group that popped up along maybe like before or after, I can't remember exactly, but they would fulfill the role that you would expect raiders to do. There was a cannibal group, I don't remember what their names were. They had some creative name, but another one of them was a group of role players called the Enclave Armed Forces, who were basically just doing Enclave roleplay stuff. A couple days ago on January 3rd, this person, Winners Use Drugs on Twitter, shared it's like a post of sorts. I'm going to say that this is all alleged stuff, because me personally, I don't know anything concrete. I just saw this image, and it seems to be from somebody who is presenting it as an official statement from the EAF, which, as I just alluded to, is the Enclaved Armed Forces. And what it says is the Enclave, it's got like an overall title. It says creating a safe environment. And then the preface to this post says the Enclave age has begun. And then the actual post itself says, in the EAF, we strongly believe in proper behavior. This belief system, oops, hold on. That didn't help at all. This belief stems from the military philosophy of excellence that drives us to do the right thing. We do this not because there is a rule, but because we are leaders, and we lead by example in the face of internet toxicity. As such, each EAF member will stand up for all citizens and will also go out of their way to support new players and actively police the wasteland. What this means is any behavior, any fully capitalized, any behavior from the player base that is considered toxic or harmful to the lawful enjoyment of Fallout 76 will be taxed by the EAF. In short, you will lose your camp and in some cases your player account. The EAF evicts toxic players from public worlds daily and is responsible for many account bans. This is your warning. Play fair, play nice, or we will come for you. For everyone else, please enjoy your local EAF world, as you can be sure it will lack griefers, dupers, scammers, trap camps, and legacy weapon users. What is your take on that? Oh, sorry. But before you answer that, I also want to point out that the Enclave Armed Forces, which is at Enclave_EAF on Twitter, they were sourced. Their Twitter account directly was sourced in a 2020 December 2020 Polygon article titled "Fallout 76's Huge Fan War is a Fight Against Nukes, Glitches, and Raiders," and their Twitter account was included in that article. Their Twitter account does not exist anymore, and there has even been an Instagram post that shows that their actual website, enclavedarmedforces.com, is allegedly, again, this is all sort of still unfolding, it is riddled with trackers. And for anyone who doesn't know what a tracker is, it basically allows somebody to look up the IP of anybody who's actively like entering the website. So you're on the website and if there's a tracker on it, that person can see your IP address when you're on the website. So it's like there's a very tiny chance that that could have been installed separately. So it's that, and the fact that the Twitter account no longer exists is in and of itself not great, but specifically that whole creating a safe environment thing. What are your thoughts on that specifically? Because when I saw this, I immediately thought of you, because this is 110% something that, like, if this had actually become a thing, you 110% would have become a target of this. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This ends justify the means level of toxicity. What do you think, though?
Sure. So, to me, to organize my thoughts here for a second, because it's a complex situation, a complex question. Mm-hmm. First, I'd like to point out that if I were them and I was trying to target people who that they're trying to target here, mm-hmm. having a means to track people who are looking at their website would mm-hmm. absolutely be a strategic thing to do, because then I'm going to be able to target that player. I have their IP address, this, that, and the other. If I'm creating a big wave in the water, knowing that I'm going to get sharks to bite and come start swimming in my direction, that would be a great way to capture all those sharks. So you're going to have someone who is going to click on their website, like, who the fuck are these people? Like, they're going to tell me what I can and can't do. You're going to click on their website, and now they have all your information. Yeah. That would be a strategic thing, and I bet that's probably what they're trying to do there. At least, if we're buying into the conspiracy there, right?
Yeah. If the allegations is that these people in some form or another are actually trying to track your IP address through their website. Again, allegedly, I'm not making any claims myself. I'm just reporting on what I've seen.
Sure. You know, yeah, that's going to be Bethesda's problem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because so here's the thing: is that everything they said so far is totally fine with me, except for the account ban part.
Yeah.
Because what they're doing is they are overloading the report feature. They're gonna. That's essentially what they're promising here. Is like, we're gonna report you so many times that we're gonna get this automated system to put strikes on your account, and eventually you'll get banned.
Mm-hmm.
But to combat that, you just have to see that as Bethesda and make adjustments to your algorithm in which you remove and report players. Now, the problem is, and like I can speak to this, is like when your account is flagged, if you respond to Bethesda, a lot of times, A, they don't respond back. B, they will respond and it'll be like after the fact. They're like, well, the reason why your account is currently deactivated, and blah blah blah, and you're like, it's not currently deactivated. Like, what? Like, are you just guys? Are we asleep at the wheel? Like, what are we doing, guys?
Mm-hmm.
But if you ask them, okay, can you give me examples specifically of like things that like I had done wrong to incur this wrath, if you will? There's like no receipt. It's like when a credit card company is like, well, you owe X amount of money. Be like, okay, cool. What do I owe that money from? Like collections agency. Can you tell me what exactly you're collecting on? And like they have to provide you with like some sort of like receipt of like a breakdown of like expenditures. And if they can't, then they can't really pursue you. Well, it's their own company and it's their own game, so they can kind of do whatever they want. But like, so when you ask them like, what did I do specifically? They're like, well, we don't know, but you were flagged enough times. That's a wrap.
Right.
Like, cool. So with that being said, having them take advantage of that kind of sucks. If they posted that exact same post minus the account ban part, like literally, if you would just remove that sentence,
mm-hmm.
I would, as someone who was like, the terror of the wasteland, as someone who like had like that moniker, I would love this. I would love it right on its face, in the sense of like, you think you're gonna come do something about me? I'm gonna send all of your people back to your base in boxes, dude. Like I'm gonna mail you back dudes like head. Like that's what's gonna happen here. And I would go out of my way to annihilate these people, because the reality is, I can't think of an individual who was able to consistently beat me
mm-hmm.
In PvP, right? So to deal with me, that means that you're going to have to basically run me off the server, and just by beating me. And if you can't do that, then how are you going to hold? How are you going to hold this? This as like if you're going to make a threat, how do you back up the threat, right? So what I would do if I were them is you have two options here. Because like I would describe myself as like, I would decimate people in workshops, but I was never necessarily like those people that were like, oh, we're the raiders. I'm like, you can come get these fucking hands too, dude. Like, right. I would just annihilate those people.
Right.
So like I would describe myself as like a neutral party. I would kind of like stay out of a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But so then if I was these Enclave people, I would try to appeal to like people like myself. It's like, hey, you're really good at your craft. We would like your help. Mm-hmm. We would love to enlist you to enforce these things, because like ultimately again, now we're just adding cool, fun, interactive components to the game. I would love, and I mean love with a capital L, to have someone be like, hey, so we're a group of traders who are constantly doing trades and this, that, and the other, and we are getting harassed by, I'm just going to make up some stuff here. We're getting harassed by the raiders, and they keep killing us in the middle of our trades. They keep taking our stuff. We can't have that. Because of that, like, people don't want to trade with us anymore because they don't think it's safe. Can you protect us? And like a fucking John Wayne movie from back in the day, dude, I would be fucking annihilating people as they approach the wagon caravan, dude. That'd be so fun. And it'd be a fun, interactive thing to do. But unfortunately, the game is not that complex per se.
It's actually kind of funny that you bring up that example specifically, because recently, I don't know if you saw the IGN documentary that was looking at like, there's still people playing Fallout 76. Like, what's it was basically kind of like, there's still people playing Fallout 76. What's up with that? But in like a more like wholesome kind of way. Like, these people are still playing even after one of the most disastrous game launches in modern history, and are like, have made, they're still having fun with it, right?
Right.
In the documentary, trading, specifically like in-game trading, was something that they looked at, and there are actually specific like groups and factions of people that do just that. They oversee and they moderate trading situations, because there used to be situations in which people would, like, the bad faith trading, where somebody would drop an item and they'd go to pick up that item, and then somebody like behind them who was like in the shadows would just like kill that person, and they just end up taking all their stuff. There are actually, trading bodyguards, basically, which as you said is really cool. That's real awesome and creative community building stuff. Based on what I've seen as far as this this Enclave, policing shenaniganery, a lot of people are, or as far as I've seen, a lot of people have been really quick to point out the hypocrisy in basically saying, like, we're going to make sure that every server that we're active on is, they're like, there's nobody griefing, there's nobody, putting down trap camps, which trap camps in themselves are just kind of an exploit of the game and not meant to be anything like specifically like targeting or harassing. It's just like, I made this thing, and if you walk on this thing, you get hit by a bear trap, or like a there's punji boards or pungi boards or whatever in the game as like a thing you can actually put down at your camp, and when you walk over it, you get a little bit of damage. Like, this is part of the game. But more so specifically, like, a lot of people I've seen are pointing out, like, hey, so you have an issue with, like, griefers and toxic people and people who harass, people who are just trying to play the game. But then you say that the way you're going to make that not an issue is by harassing and being toxic and griefing, and from what they're alluding to, false flagging other players who, may not be being the nicest of people, but you're basically, you're like I said, it's the ends justify the means, but you're using the same means that you're chastising these people for. So a lot of people are pointing out that specifically. I don't think people have an issue with, groups of people, trying to say, like, we're gonna be the big bad guys around here, but more so the hypocrisy of it, right? And especially since this is from a group that's role-playing as the Enclave, a group that doesn't exactly have the friendliest connotations attached to it in the Fallout universe.
There's so many other things. You could have been the Minutemen, I guess. You could have been like so many other things.
But yeah, with that specifically, I just wanted to get your take on it. And from what you said, I kind of expected that you would be up for the challenge and stuff like that. I just thought it was real interesting because it kind of goes back to what we started the conversation about, like started the interview about with you becoming involved in the PvP stuff because you were at first more engaging with the role playing aspect, the stuff that you know, Todd Howard said, like, this is kind of what the game is supposed to be about, people creating, you know, their own stories and stuff like that. And so, as I said, with that original thought, it's interesting that kind of notion of player freedom and player creativity would end up creating somebody like you who went on to create a legacy of infamy for themselves as being, you know, somebody like you said, a specter of the wasteland or what have you. And then that same mentality would also go on to create this group of people who have no qualms about using contradictory, quote unquote, toxic tactics, in order to fight toxic tactics. It's like if Batman shot people.
Right. Which one, you know, maybe he should. But besides the point with that, though, is like, you know, when I would kill people or just like destroy someone's base, stuff like that, none of that stuff was like permanent. You know, like you could rebuild. None of that stuff was long lasting and all that kind of stuff. And like there people are, you know, they're kind of talking about like, you know, banning people's accounts and stuff like that. And that's just real lame.
That's,
you know?
that's some next level. That's some next level shit. Like there's a point where like, oh, we're just gonna like, you know, grief and mess with you a lot because we think it's funny. But then there's like, we're gonna go out of our way to get you banned because we don't like the way you're playing our game. Like,
but you know, the other take of this though is like, who, you know, just because I used to always like tell a lot of the young kids that I would work with is just because you say something doesn't make it true. Right? Just because you say that you're going to ban people, that doesn't mean you're going to.
Right.
This could be, you know, some middle-aged dude who's like hanging out in his mom's basement, you know, with him and like 3 of his buddies who are making we're bringing the Enclave back, boys.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to do shit. Yeah. Like, you know, it could just be that. I don't know of this Enclave group. I don't know how big they are or little they are or whatever.
Well, it's weird because I was also kind of like, I knew there was Enclave groups. I don't know if the group that I knew about was the same as the group that posted this specifically. I don't think it is, because one player that's pretty decently known in the Fallout 76 community, role-play community specifically, they go by President Dash. He actually commented this, and he says, ashamed to see such a toxic community of griefers. So I would imagine that this group was, at least 2 years ago, big enough to be included in the Polygon article, but is perhaps either now or is no longer associated with being like the forefront of the Enclave role-playing group. But it's more so specifically, like I said, it's just so interesting that the basic idea that Todd Howard was pushing forward, like the community crafting the story and the overall arcing goings on in Appalachia, that it ended up something, you know, like this. The murderers and toxic players on every side of the spectrum, as it were.
Yeah, you know, you see all that, and it really reminds me of. Do you remember when I believe it was Antifa or something like that took over like a block in Portland?
It was in Washington.
Washington, that's right.
Yeah.
It was Chaz or whatever it was called.
Yeah, and it fell apart after like a week or two, I think.
Yeah, and then like within that week's time, the people who like were trying to like, you know, create this like utopia, if you will, were like threatening people in that community with like guns that like, hey, if you don't comply with like what we're trying to do here, like you better either get out or we're gonna harm you. And it's like a lot of those people at the time were really protesting the police, and it's like, what are the police if not someone who is um, going to accomplish a goal by force if necessary?
Yeah.
Right. Like a strict definition, whether you're for or against whatever, but like if a police officer says like, hey, stop the vehicle. If you don't, there are going to be consequences ultimately at the end of a gunpoint, right?
Yeah.
So like you're protesting that, and then you're doing that in your society, not even a week later, to try to uphold it. And then like it kind of like, to me, it's like that is so contradictory. And it's kind of the same thing here. You're talking about like, we're gonna deal with griefers. What is more griefing than spamming Bethesda in a means to try to get someone's account banned? Account block. Now, if you're going on there and you see Cazador is tormenting players in these workshops, and you show up and you fucking knock his dick in the dirt and you push him back, like, hey man, good on you. Like, good, like, first of all, fucking let me know how you did that. But like, second of all, that's awesome, and it creates that dynamic. I think, like, I remember one time someone nuked my base because I was killing them over and over and over. And I was like, dude, round of applause, man. Round of applause for blowing my base up.
Yeah.
Because it did two things. A, I have respect for you for like fighting back. And then like B, like once I rebuilt my base, it was still all radiated. So then I have like some fucking awesome green screenshots of like my base all glowing and fucking cool looking, but it's like those moments right there, it's like, yeah, that's worth playing. I know that before my count was eradicated, I had a running kill total of like how many people that I have like killed individually, because I keep track every day, and it was like almost, if not already, at like 2,000.
Oh, geez.
So like 2,000 unique individual people have some sort of Cazador story to tell.
Right.
The same way you did, right? And to me, that adds content and replayability to the game that other means and other things just can't provide. And I think there's value there. I think there's value for the person who tells the story of like, yeah, man, I was running from him, and I thought I got away, and he fucking blew up the truck that I was like right next to, and it sent me like flying through the sky as I was ragdolling.
Yeah.
In space. Like these are moments that people have.
It creates the experience that you might not have otherwise.
Yeah, one of my good friends, her name's Jen. We met in Fallout 76. I was about to murder her and her father at a workshop, and somebody else showed up to claim it from them right before I pulled the trigger.
Nice.
And I'm like, well, now clearly you got to die.
Yeah.
So like they were almost caught in the crossfire. So like just the other day we were like laughing about it. I'm like, do you know how close you were to getting like absolutely annihilated?
Yeah.
And like we, and then we laugh about it and stuff. But it's like these were these cool interactions, and like her dad, because like he's like in his like 60s. He's like sitting there like talking. He's like I didn't know what the fuck was going on. This dude just kept like getting blown away like left, right, and center. Like he was just, his body just kept ragged on across the screen. He's like, I was just sitting there like crouched down, hiding. I didn't want to be part of the massacre. But like that was his interaction with that. And like had I not been there, had that guy not been there, it would have just been kind of boring. And I think that is a thing, like a dynamic that should be enjoyed and cherished in the game, as far as like these are entertaining things that are happening around us, rather than something that has to be prohibited, and if you try to do it, we're going to try to get your account banned.
What is a so like there, I mean 2023 specifically, there's like loads of games that are going to be coming out that a lot of people are really excited for Bethesda fans specifically. Starfield is a real big hype game.
Oh yeah.
Me personally, I'm super excited about that. What games have you seen so far that are either projected this year or like in the near future, like the next year or two, 2024, 2025, something like that, like coming down the pipeline? What games are you looking forward to?
Yeah. So what was that? You said not Starfield. What was it called? The Bethesda one that's getting ready to drop eventually?
Starfield.
Starfield. Okay, Starfield. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I hope that game is everything that I want it to be. It looks like it could be very cool. Looks like it could be a lot of fun. So here's to fucking hoping, right?
Right.
If they, land the plane, I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I think the modding community could be tremendous. If they allow people to mod the same way that they did with like Skyrim and Fallout, where I mean, in that game it shows, or at least it seems like you could go to like different planets and stuff. So like that means that people can like make their own planets. People can like have their own worlds and environments, which means that like I could, in theory, download like a mod pack of like different worlds and different planets and different like things that are going on in those worlds and planets. And then like I could already see a cool thing where it's like, if you want your planet to be part of our mod pack, you have to meet like these like certain criteria that is like vetted. So like you can't just have like, nonsense worlds going on here, right? Where you got like Skyrim with like all the dragons become Tom's the Tank Engine. Like you can't have that, okay? Because we're trying to fit like a realistic theme here, like how the rest of the game is. But if you do fit our criteria, then we will add you to our, curations. So then like I can imagine, 5 years from now, you download a mod pack that has like 50 different new planets that are like places that you could go and things you can do. And these are like user created stories and user created like situations and things that are going on. Like that could be a whole lot of fun. So I really hope that, we see something like that and that it actually comes to fruition.
I've been seeing some people jokingly or otherwise say that there's going to be a mod for Skyrim or for Starfield that's just going to just literally be Skyrim.
Oh yeah, I'm sure, dude. You're gonna like sit down like your VR headset in that game and like put them on, and you're just gonna like wake up in a fucking wagon.
Right.
But god damn it, it's happening again.
Well, more so specifically, like they're playing Starfield, and then it's like, oh, they go to a planet, and then I don't know how in depth the modding thing is, but maybe you're going down to the planet. A cutscene plays. You have some engine trouble.
Oh my god! You end up
crashing, and then you wake up and you're in the car, and it's like,
oh no!
And I pray to whatever divine force or cosmic justice or injustice there is out there that whoever puts out that mod goes by the screen name Todd Howard.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. They should do that anyway. That would be a hilarious little Easter egg in their game or something like that.
Whoever's out there listening to this podcast, modding for Starfield or planning on doing modding for Starfield, and you want to try to port Skyrim into Starfield, start a new account and name yourself Todd Howard. Like, just do that for me. Yeah, come on, let's do it.
Yeah. So there's that game, and then the one other like shout out I'd really mention, and it's a game that actually just came out, but it's still like really in its infancy of like play, and it's like infancy of like content that will eventually be for it.
Right.
And it's got a lot of negative reviews from people who have mixed feelings about it, and I definitely understand where they come from. I am very excited and I'm a big fan of Darktide. And I'm very much looking forward to the future of that game.
What's Darktide about?
So Darktide is a PvE co-op game, um, in which four friends take on hordes and hordes of enemies and try to accomplish different objectives and this, that, and the other. Set in the Warhammer 40K universe.
Mm.
And
Oh
that
wait,
game,
no, yeah, I've seen that game.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that game's predecessors were like the Vermintide series,
Mhm.
Vermintide 1, Vermintide 2. I am a huge fan of those games. I have countless hours in all those games. And with Darktide, it came out to a rocky start, mostly because of it was purchased by Tencent, the company, and they're really notorious for like nickel and diming players like microtransactions, and that is a justifiable gripe of that company. But the gameplay mechanics and like the core fun of that game is completely intact and is completely there.
Right.
So it's like, I think over time, how like a lot of games will get like review bombed, and ultimately like it's not like it's an unfun game to play. It's people that are mad of how Tencent operates its company.
Right.
And I know after Vermintide came out, Vermintide 2, they were bought out by Tencent. So it's Fat Shark the developer, so they were bought out by Tencent. So like Fat Shark the company, it's controlled by a CEO, I imagine, who is making decisions and this, that, and the other. But like the person who is making this Warhammer feel awesome when I slam it into the side of this dude's head, that's not his fault. It's not his fault that like there are dudes that are pulling the strings and deciding that, this fucking dirty bandage that your character wears on his head costs $4.99.
Right.
That's not that dude's fault. So like I can get behind like shitting on that company for those kind of predatory practices as far as like charging consumers for stuff that like they shouldn't be charging consumers for. But the people who built the game, the people who designed like levels, designed the enemy, designed how like it feels to play, far and away that game has the best melee mechanics of like combat of like any game I've ever played.
Nice.
I think if you took the melee combat of that game and you put it in like Skyrim, it would be the greatest game of all time.
Yeah.
It feels so good. But that's what I would do if I was Bethesda. I'd be like, hey, who the fuck made this Warhammer feel so good? Right. When you swing it and like it sends that dude ragdolling across the screen, hire that guy, have him work on our game. Have him make Starfield just like that, But it's a game that just came out like a month ago, if not even. But that's definitely a game that I am super invested in right now.
What we've talked specifically about like I guess it would kind of be defined as like mannerisms, how to engage more so with like communities and like boundaries on like what is considered acceptable engagement and what could be more so considered like unacceptable engagement, like the whole like policing and then like trying to get people banned thing, the way you specifically engaged other people in PvP and stuff like that. Because especially nowadays people have like a lot of stresses and they're trying to figure out just how to do the best that they can. What do you think that one ought to do in order to lead a good life?
Well, that's a complex, deep question. What they ought to do to live a good life. I think ultimately, wow, that's a good question. I think ultimately, when you're asking yourself that question, and when you are, trying to find meaning to yourself as far as like the direction you want your life to go in, direction you want things to go for you, I think being honest with yourself is a great place to start.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, there are people who are not true to themselves, are not honest with themselves, are
Right.
not honest with like their partner, are not, they struggle, come to terms with like reality. And as a result, it just kind of complicates whatever is already complicating their life.
Right.
I before I do the work that I do now, right now I work in the heating and air business. So it's actually a really busy season for us right now.
Right.
But before I did that, the last 10 years I worked in the mental health field. So I would see a lot of people come and go with like a lot of different things going on in their lives. Now I specialized in like behavioral health. And I would say, the greatest factor with a lot of those individuals was like the relationships that they held, the relationships that they have. And a lot of times those people, like certain individuals, would have people who like loved and cared about them, and they would drive those people away and they'd push those people away. And I think, having people you surround yourself with who love and care about you and are also able to be honest with you and tell you hard truths. I think having that kind of environment is really cohesive to living a healthier life. I think that there are some people who, find themselves like kind of like shut in from society, maybe estranged from certain family members and stuff like that. And it really creates problems because you don't have anyone who, all you have at that point are just people that are not invested in you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if I, we're gonna, get super crazy here for a second, but like if I have a hygiene issue, let's say, right,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't have anyone who cares about me or loves me enough to be like, hey man, I'm noticing this thing, or is everything okay? Are you all right? If I don't have anyone like that, who is going to take the time and investment to really sit me down and have that conversation?
Mm-hmm.
If I don't have anyone in my circle or in my life who cares enough, no one's going to make that investment because that's a really hard conversation to have with somebody.
Right.
And there are so many similar conversations that can be so difficult and so challenging. So then when it comes to like actually having like a meaningful interaction, people are like, my energy and my time is valuable to me and I don't want to spend it on you.
Right.
Because we're not close enough. I don't feel that way about you. But so then like having people that are going to be in your corner who are going to be there for you for the good times, there for you for the bad times, and are willing to tell you what you need to hear, not necessarily what you want to hear, I think that goes a very long way.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with Cazador, the Spectre of Appalachia. As mentioned during the interview, Cazador is still actively live streaming on Twitch. If you wish to view his live streams, check out the description below for links to his socials. If you enjoyed this episode of the Atomcast, the best way to show your support is by becoming a recurring Patreon member, as your contribution will go directly towards improving the quality of future episodes, decreasing the time between uploads, and will help to sustain this and other transmissions long into the future. For now, though, I once again thank you all so much for listening, and I will see you all out there in the wasteland.